Good morning, students. So today we are going to start our next topic, and our next topic is population interactions in chapter 14, that is organisms and population. The students' first type of population interaction that is generally present, that is generally happen in a habitat is predation. So what is this predation? This predation is a type of population interaction in which one organism is a prey and the other organism is predator. So always remember, a predator is always in search of a prey. A prey is actually the food of the predator. So this type of interaction, it is known as a predation. So whenever we use the term predation, incidence comes in our mind that one tiger is running and catching the deer. So this type of interaction between a tiger and deer, it is an example of predation. But is this the only example? What about plants and animals that are feeding on these plants? I mean herbivores. So these herbivores, they are actually the predators of our green plants or autotrophs. Similarly, if we are talking about an interaction between seeds and seed-eating birds such as a sparrow, then that is also an example of a prey-predator relationships. So these predators, they generally cause harm to the prey. They keep a check on the population of the prey and they maintain an ecological balance in the habitat. But these predators, they are also beneficial in many aspects. For example, they act as the agents of energy transfer. They transfer the energy from one trophic level to the next trophic level. As I have already told you, they keep the prey population under control. If the predators, they are absent from the habitat, then this means the prey population, it keeps on increasing and there is no check over that population. That increase a burden on the habitat because the resources, they becomes limited. So in this way, here we are going to study about this interaction, that how the population of the prey is maintained by these predators. This means they are playing a significant role in controlling the population of the prey. So here I want to give you one example when some exotic species, that is a species which is coming from some other habitat, it is introduced into a geographical area, then they become invasive in that area and start spreading fast in the area because the invaded land actually do not have their natural predators. So one incident takes place in the year 1920 in Australia. Here a prickly pear cactus, it is introduced from some other country and it caused havoc by spreading rapidly millions of hectares of land in Australia. And finally, the invasive cactus was brought under control only after a cactus feeding predator, that is a moth. And that moth is captured from its natural habitat and later introduced in the country. Then only this abnormal growth of prickly pear cactus is controlled in the country. Okay, another example is biological control methods. We are using so many biological control methods such as agriculture pest control methods. And all of these methods, they are generally based on a holistic approach of prey-predator relationship. As our organic farmer, he knows very well that if in a field, a population of prey is there, then naturally that field also contains the population of predators. So these predators, they help in maintaining species diversity in a community. How it maintains species diversity? By reducing the intensity of the competition that actually occurs between the prey species. If the predator is absent, then there is so much competition between the prey species, and as a result of that competition, many species of prey, they get extinct because of this interspecific competition. So one example is seen in American Pacific coast. So in the rocky intertidal communities of these American Pacific coast, the starfish piaster is an important predator. But when this starfish, that is piaster, it is removed from that enclosed intertidal area, then what happened? More than 10 species of the invertebrates, they become extinct within a year. Why they become extinct? Because of the interspecific competition that takes place between the prey species. Another thing is, if the predator is too efficient and overexploits the prey might become extinct. And following it, the predator, it also become extinct for lack of food. So the predators, they are very much prudent. The prey species, they also evolved various kind of defenses to lessen the effect of these predators or predation. So here I want to tell you some example that how the prey species, they evolved themselves to minimize the effect of the predators. So here we are going to see the example of some insects and frogs. So these species of insects and frogs, they actually camouflage. And whatever color is present in their surroundings, they make their body color according to that. And in this way, they cannot be easily detected by their predators. So they can avoid their predators. They protect themselves. Some are doing another trick, that is to protect themselves from their predators. Some of them, they accumulate certain poisonous chemicals inside their body. Here I want to give you one example of the monarch butterfly. So this monarch butterfly, it is highly distasteful to its predator bird. And how this happened? Because of a special chemical present in the body. And how the butterfly obtained that chemical? So the butterfly acquired this chemical during its caterpillar stage. And during its caterpillar stage, the butterfly, it usually feed on a poisonous weed. And because of that, the chemical enters in the body. And because of this butterfly, it becomes highly distasteful to its predator. In this way, she protects herself from her predators. Yes, student, many more examples of predation here I am going to discuss. For plants, you know that herbivores, they are the predators. So it was generally found that 25% of all insect species, they are generally phytophagous in nature. And they feed on plants for obtaining their plant sap or for some other parts of the plant. The problem, it is very much severe for the plants because like animals, they cannot run away from their predators. They cannot leave their habitat. So what the plants do, these plants, they evolve a variety of morphological and chemical defenses against the herbivores to minimize the loss that they cause to plants. So here I want to give the example of cactus and acacia. So these cactus and acacia plants, they develop certain morphological features. That spines are present in a case of acacia, cactus, and thorns are there in acacia. And because of this, they minimize the effect of browsing animal over their body. Yes, student, many plants, they also produce and store chemicals that makes the herbivores even sick when they eat these plant or plant parts. They inhibit feeding or digestion because of storage of this harmful chemical. And they also disrupt the process of reproduction in these predators. And even by consuming these chemicals, the predators, they get killed. Here I want to tell you the example of the weed. It is a wild weed Calotropis, and that is growing in abandoned field. So the plant, it generally produced poisonous cardiac glycosides, and that's why no cattle, cow, buffalo, or goat, they generally browse on this plant. So wide variety of chemical substances that we generally extract from the plants on a commercial scale, which we called as secondary metabolites, are present in plants such as nicotine, caffeine, quinine, strychnine, opium. So all of these, they are actually the secondary metabolites which are produced by the plants as their defense purpose. So they defend these plants against grazers or browsers. A student, after predation, we are going to study our next type of population interaction, and that is competition. So according to Charles Darwin, what Darwin said, competition always takes place among members of the same species. That means competition is always interspecific competition, and it is a potent force by which organic evolution it generally happens. They generally believe that competition always occurs between closely related species. And these closely related species, they generally compete for the same resources. And those resources, they are limited in their habitat. But that is not entirely true. Totally unrelated species can also compete for the same resources. So here I want to give you one example of South American lakes, shallow South American lakes, where the visiting birds known as flamingos, they generally compete with the resident fish for the common food which both of these eats, and that is zooplanktons present in the lake. So there is a competition between two different species. One is birds, that is flamingos, and another are the pisces, that is resident fishes. So it is not an interspecific competition. It is a competition between two different species. And secondly, what is the thing that is said for competition, that always competition happens when there is limitation in resources. That means resources, they are limited. But this is also not true. Sometimes what happens? Though the resources, they are unlimited in the habitat, in interference type of competition, the feeding efficiency of one species might be reduced due to interfering and inhibitory presence of the other species. Though the resources, it may be food, space, shelter, or breeding partners, they are enough in the habitat, but still the competition is there. Not because of these resources, because they are already unlimited resources, but it is only because of the feeding efficiency of one species, that one species is quite, you can say one species can eat the things very fastly as compared to the other species, and other species are slow in his work. And because of that high feeding efficiency, that species become a winner, and the other species, he lags behind. Yes, student, competition is best described in which the fitness of one species is significantly lower in the presence of the other species. So what the scientist Bau said, and other ecologists, they are also doing certain these field experiments, and he and other scientists concluded that when resources are limited, the competitively superior species will eventually eliminate the other species which is inferior. So here he is, in order to support his conclusion, what the scientists gave an evidence, and that is the abundant tortoises, they are generally found in the Galapagos Islands. They become extinct within a decade after goats were introduced in the islands apparently. Why this happened? Due to the greater browsing efficiency of the tortoises, they are very slow in their grazing efficiency. But the goats, they graze at a faster rate. That's why within a decade, these abundant tortoises, they extinct from the Galapagos Island. Yes, student, another evidence comes from the occurrence of competition in nature, what we called as competitive release. So a species whose distribution is restricted to a small geographical area, because of the presence of a competitively superior species, is found to expand its distributional range dramatically when the competing species is experimentally removed. So Connell is was the scientist who did some elegant field experiment, and by these experiments he showed that on the rocky sea coast of Scotland, the larger and competitively superior barnacle lives, and his name was balanus, and this balanus dominates the intertidal area. But when this balanus, they are removed from that intertidal area, or they actually leave that area himself, then the small barnacles such as thalamus, they comes on that zone and they occupy the larger intertidal area. So in the presence of that superior barnacle balanus, the smaller barnacle, they are not able to extend their population. So last line which I want to discuss here is herbivores and plants. They are appear to be more adversely affected by the competition as compared to carnivores. So there are so many examples. You know that plants, they cannot run away from their habitat, and herbivores, they are feeding on plants, and these herbivores, their number is also more as compared to the carnivores. And these carnivores, they have certain modified adaptive features present in them. Because of them, they become superior and they can easily hunt these herbivores. So here I want to discuss one principle that was given by the scientist Gauss, and that is Gauss' competitive expulsion principle. What this principle states that the two closely related species which are competing for the same resources cannot coexist indefinitely. And what happened? The competitively inferior one will be eliminated eventually. So this may be true if the resources are limited, but if the resources are unlimited, then it will not happen, because the weak species, which is the inferior one, that species can also survive because there is no lack of resources. So both the species, they coexist. So recent some studies they are done on this Gauss expulsion principle, and it is generally found that these recent studies, they do not support such gross generalization about competition. So there are so many ample evidences that shows that the Gauss expulsion principle is not truly valid. So sometimes the species facing competition, they evolve mechanisms and that promote coexistence rather than expulsion. So here I want to tell you one mechanism that was generally adopted by a species, and that is resource partitioning. So if two species, they compete for the same resource, and they could avoid competition by choosing, for instance, different times for feeding or different foraging patterns. Where here the scientist MacArthur show that 5 closely related species of barbels, they are living on the small tree, were able to avoid competition and coexist due to behavioral differences in their foraging activities. That means all of these insects, they go for their foraging activities at different times, and in this way they can easily coexist with each other and they can avoid the competition. Okay, student. So today you have to revise up to this, that is competition and predation. So in my upcoming lecture, I am going to tell you about another type of population interaction, that is parasitism. That's all in today's lecture, student. Have a nice day.